Hello everybody, welcome back. We are here continuing our series on Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the other great dystopian novel of the 20th century. And today I want to talk characters, right? Because characters are the heart of any book, and very often whatever the author is trying to communicate to us is going to come to us through the characters that they create. So, just to remind ourselves of what we talked about last time, one of the core concepts of the book that is absolutely necessary for it to work is that in this world, nothing matters, right? People, you don't have lovers, you don't have real friends, you don't have a wife or a husband, you don't have a mother or a father. You just, you be with whoever you want to be with, right? That's all that matters. You don't care about your job or anything like that because the job is something that you have been conditioned to do and conditioned to love. You don't want what you can't have, and if there's something you can't have, then you just don't want it. And if you have any sort of bumpy moments where that doesn't quite work, there's Soma, which helps even everything out so that you can just relax and not worry about things anymore. Nothing matters. And so, I thought I'd talk about the characters. And in order to do that in the very sort of 2020s way, I've created a nice little, let's put it here, 4-character grid based on these 4 characters that I picked and their relationship to this world and this concept of nothing matters. So some of them understand the world, some of them don't, some of them love it, and some of them hate it. And we're going to kind of look at it this way. So I want to talk about sort of, let's talk Lenina first. She doesn't really understand the world. She doesn't know all the intricacies of it. She doesn't really know how things work, why things work the way she does. She does her job in the fertilization process, and she does it well, and she's fine with that. And she's not really interested in asking, why things are the way they are. Because most people are just conditioned to accept the way things are. So Lenina is a fairly typical beta girl. Remember, the betas and the alphas are the ones who are allowed to be pretty much individuals, right? Anything lower than that, and you're probably a set of clones. She is a little odd in that she only dates one person at a time. Ooh, wild. But other than that, she seems to be fairly normal, right? When she and Bernard go off to the reservation, she has a very hard time doing without a lot of the amenities that she's normally used to, right? The hot and cold running scent, the fresh clothes, the showers, all the sensoramas, all of the things that she would normally use to distract herself aren't there in the reservation. And she seems really attached to all of the things that the world gives her. So I think she likes the world that she lives in because, again, she doesn't have to worry about what her job is. She's fine doing what her job is. And she likes all of the luxuries that are available to her. And when she is removed from that and she goes to the reservation, she can't deal with it. She can't deal with it very long. She's very happy to return. Later, when they bring John back and John forms this kind of obsessive focus on her, it makes her very uncomfortable because this is not how you're supposed to relate to people in this world, right? You're not supposed to want one person to the exclusion of everybody else. And even though she likes John, he's handsome, he's got a nice bod, she does not understand the way he thinks and the way he thinks about people and the way he thinks about love. To be fair, John's kind of messed up, and we'll get to him. But nevertheless, Lenina doesn't understand the world, but she likes it. This is a world that she can live in perfectly comfortably. On the other hand, we have Bernard. Bernard understands the world. I think he gets it. He understands the way things work. He understands what the rules are. He largely not to the same extent that, say, Mustafa Mons does, but he largely understands why things are the way they are and how the rules work and whatnot. And he hates it. He does not like it. Bernard, at various points in the book, expresses a desire to be alone, right? To be in solitude. He takes Lenina out to see just nature by themselves, and it drives her nuts. She can't stand it, but for him, he finds this kind of quiet solitude to be very relaxing, and he likes that a lot. He has ambition. He wants to be better than he is. He wants to struggle, but there is no place for struggle in this world, and he has a very hard time dealing with that. The best he can do is when he manages to get the birthing center manager thrown out for having fathered a child. But Bernard's behavior is so, let's call it distressing to the system, that he almost gets sent away to Iceland, which is where all of the weird people get sent, which doesn't sound too bad, right? To be sent off to Iceland? Iceland is nice, I suppose. with other like-minded weirdos. Hey, fantastic. But that is Bernard, and Bernard is always looking for ways to kind of push the system a little bit, to do the things that he's not supposed to do, to try and shake things up. And that's why he brings John back from the reservation, is in order to shake things up and try to make the world a little bit different and maybe, I don't know, change things a bit, which is what the world absolutely does not want to do. Enter Mustafa Mond. So Mustafa Mond is one of the 10 world controllers. He's one of the 10 people in charge of everything. And near the end of the book, he does a thing which reminded me of O'Brien in 1984, honestly, where he kind of lays everything out for us. And he explains that the one guiding principle of the world is stability. We must have stability. Individual desires don't matter. None of it matters if we don't have stability. And that is how this whole world came to be. That's why we have these sort of cloned and brainwashed epsilons and gammas and deltas. That's why we have sleep teaching for children. That's why there is no mother, no father. That's why there are no personal bonds. None of that. All of that has been systematically, over the last 300 years or so, taken apart so that the world can be stable. And sure, occasionally things happen where that stability is disturbed, but there are ways of dealing with that. At one point in the book, when John is in the hospice when his mom dies, and there's a whole bunch of kids there who are there for desensitization training. I think that's not the word I want, but it's the word I have. Desensitivity. And these kids are basically shown in to look at dying people so that kids aren't sad about dying anymore. And John makes a huge fuss, and he tries to get rid of their soma, and a bunch of guards, I guess, come in with big like spray hoses full of soma mist to kind of calm everybody down. So there are occasional little pockets of unrest and distress, but the state has ways of dealing with that. For the most part, everything has been done. Everything's finished. Mustafa Mond himself used to be a physicist. He used to be interested in, exploring the mysteries of the world and the unknown, but basically he was given a chance, be exiled off to Iceland or toe the line. And he decided to toe the line. He decided it would be better to be one of the guys in charge and to be one of the guys making sure the world stays stable. And that's what Mustafa Mond did. And so, he does kind of give us that big old speech. We know that in his heart, probably Mustafa Mond would like to be able to go back to his physics work, would like to be able to go back to experimenting and investigating the natural world. Finally, we come to John. John doesn't understand the world, and he hates the world. John has had a hard time throughout his whole life, right? He was born in the reservation to a mother who absolutely did not want him because she had been trained from birth to believe that being a mother, giving live birth like an animal, was an abomination. But she did, because she had no choice. She fell down like an escarpment into the reservation and was lost, and was kindly taken in by the reservation people. But John grew up with, his mother basically being a source of trouble because she believed, for example, that you should be able to sleep with any man you want to sleep with, and the men of the reservation were kind of happy to indulge her in this. Their wives, however, were not. So she and John were kind of pushed to the exteriors. John being, again, an outsider, even though he was born in the reservation, he was still a very, definitely not like all the other boys. And so he didn't get included in a lot of their ceremonies and rituals and coming-of-age events where he wanted to. And it was his, misfortune, maybe, to get his hands on a copy of the complete works of William Shakespeare. Before that, it's kind of funny. His mom taught him to read with the only thing she had, which was a technical manual for the fertilization center. But he got his hands on some Romeo and Juliet and some Othello and King Lear. And suddenly he understood ideas of passion and heroism and sacrifice and all of these things that Shakespeare wrote about. And he wanted all of that. That's how he learns. And in fact, through the whole book, he finds himself dropping in little bits of Shakespearean language. The title itself, of course, comes from The Tempest, from Miranda, when she sees these sailors coming onto her father's island, and she says, "Oh, what a brave new world with such people in it." And John repeats that throughout the book, and it takes on a different tone each time, right? When he's hearing a description from Bernard about the technological wonder of the world outside, he's like, "Oh, what a brave new world with such people in it." But the more he experiences it, when Bernard takes him back to London, And John becomes kind of a celebrity in the world because he's so strange and so unusual, and everybody wants to know what's going on with him. But the more he experiences it, the more he hates it. He hates that nobody wants things. He hates that nobody understands his passions. He hates that nobody understands his references, right? At one point, he tries to explain Romeo and Juliet to one of Bernard's friends. And the guy laughs for two reasons. Number one, it was a scene where Juliet says to her mom, if you're going to make me marry this guy, then you may as well make space for me in my brother's tomb. And for one thing, they don't bury people in this brave new world. No, they just burn them and use their components for whatever they need to be used for. And number two, what's this idea that she would be so attached to one man that she would rather die? That's madness. And this guy laughs at John for finding great deep meaning in this passage of Romeo and Juliet. John doesn't understand the world. Again, when he finds out that his mother is dying, he goes to visit her. She, of course, is doped to the gills on Soma. But he's wrecked, as you would expect somebody losing their mother and watching her die. But nobody around him cares. Again, like I mentioned before, they bring in school kids to come and see her, and they all look at her and go, "Ew, why is she so fat? She's got so many wrinkles. Oh, gross, nasty." And John has a fit, as we would expect him to, because we expect people to care about the death of a loved one. But this world doesn't do that. They don't have loved ones, and they don't care about death. So the longer John stays there, the more John hates this world. And eventually, he tries to escape. He finds like an abandoned tower somewhere, an abandoned lighthouse, and he tries to make a home of it. He punishes himself for every infraction. He believes that there must be some purity of mind and heart that he should have. He's in love with Lenina. He loves her dearly. And even when she kind of says, "Okay, fine, I'll sleep with you," he then turns on a dime. He's like, "No, you can't. You're a harlot and a strollop for wanting to have physical relations with me." John is broken. John is really a broken young man. He wants stuff, and he can't have these things that he wants, and he doesn't understand anything that's going on. And in the end, it leads to the very end of the book. It leads to his, let's just say, tragic ending. I don't know if you've read the book. Let's say tragic ending. And again, people don't even care about that. They find that John the Savage has ended himself, and it becomes a media sensation, right? They're amazed. They're like, "Oh, look, okay, he's swinging from a rafter." So I think Huxley, with these four characters in particular, there are more characters, of course, but with these four characters in particular, he has examined different facets of a world where nothing matters, and a world where things that are, to us, very important, like ambition and adventure and heroism and love and passion, are wiped clean. And I think that Huxley, of course, naturally is trying to portray this world as something truly awful. I mean, it's not a good place to be for us, but the people within that world don't seem to notice. And again, even when we get to the end, there is no sense whatsoever that that's ever going to change. Mustafa Mond is in charge. Stability shall be ensured. John the Savage is dead, but oh well. Who cares? And the world goes on. And I think these four characters are Huxley's way of kind of asking ourselves, who would we be in this world? Who would we like to be in this world? And I believe he does kind of lean on the fact that we probably wouldn't like to be any of them, because all of them are to some degree unhappy, right? Mustafa Mond is unhappy that he can't do the things that he wants to do, that he had to sacrifice his life of experimentation and passion for a life of perfect stability and not being in Iceland. Bernard wants to be more passionate and more exciting, but he doesn't really know how, and the world around him doesn't let it. Lenina just wants to be allowed to sleep with whoever she wants to sleep with and enjoy her Soma vacations, but these people keep getting in her way and keep dragging her off to weird places. And John there is no place on Earth where John can live happily. It doesn't exist. So as we read it, I mean, I don't know who I identify with more, to be honest. Maybe if I were much younger, I would identify more with John, because I think young people, in general, broad generalization, young people tend to be much more in touch with their passions and their big feelings. And I remember being, college age and having really big feelings that kind of took over everything. And then as you get older, those big feelings kind of flatten out a bit, which is fine. You replace them with things like doing a YouTube channel, and everyone's okay. Maybe Mustafa Mond, right? Because I could imagine myself saying, well, there's these things I would really like to do, but they entail being in exile. They entail moving to Iceland. Maybe I can redirect my enthusiasm somewhere else to being a world controller and creating this weird, benevolent dystopia. I don't know. It's a good question. What would you wish to be? Put that in the comments. Put in the comments sort of which character or which kind of attitude or which square you would fit into, you think, if you were in this world. Or which square you would prefer to fit into, I should say, if you were in this world. And see what you think. But yeah, I think that Huxley has done a really interesting job of creating that core concept of a world where no one cares, and then looking for different perspectives on it and looking how different types of people would react to it. So I think it's really well done. So bravo, Aldous Huxley, for your character creation. Nice job. So that is it for right now. I think I want to talk a little bit next time about the dystopia itself and sort of maybe what it is saying about society and sort of what our societal priorities are. But until then, thank you very much for stopping by. I appreciate that greatly. You can subscribe if you like to, or don't. Who am I to tell you what to do? I would appreciate it if you would. But until next time, have a good week, have a good time, and I will see you for the next section. Bye.